Thank you, everyone, for your patience. We're just going to give a couple more minutes for a couple more councillors to get here and we'll get started. Thank you so much.
For sure she did.
Okay, you ready?
Give me 1 second. I got to start before you get to
The regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council on Monday, June 10th, 2019 will be called to order at 10:10. At this time, would everyone willing and able please stand for the invocation given by Alderman Arnett, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a very heavy agenda today and some very important business. I think that we should all be reflective of the fact that this is about issues, it's not about people. We are colleagues and we should treat each other in that way with respect. So I would ask us to just take a moment to meditate on that and clear our minds and get ready for what may be a long day. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I might also, I would like to reflect, have a moment of silence. Although the city did not issue an official statement of any kind, I would call attention to the events that happened in northern France 75 years ago. The first wave, the very first wave of the Normandy landing was carried out by the 115th and 116th regiments of the 29th Division. The 29th Division was a National Guard unit. Company M was composed entirely of people from Annapolis. There were 13 people from Annapolis that did not return, participated in the D-Day landing, and I would like a moment of silence and gratitude for what they gave us today. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley.
Here.
Alderwoman Tierney. Alderman Payon.
Here.
Alderwoman Fennell Charles.
Here.
Alderwoman Finlayson.
Present.
Alderman Rodriguez. Alderman Savage.
Present.
Alderman Arnett.
Present. Is that?
I think so. The email, and Jacqueline would know. Ask Carrie, she would know.
What is that? Yeah. Is that tomorrow?
I don't know. Is she coming?
Can you carry Ellie's amendment?
Can I wait?
It's, that's a resolution on first reader.
Ellie's amendment on first reader. We put forward.
Sure.
It's on.
What is it?
It's on approval at the agenda.
In addition to, oh,
Just on
All right.
approval of the agenda.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No, it's on short-term rentals.
Short-term rentals, you're working that together. So, the City Attorney, please present the next first item on the agenda.
First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended to add R-30-19 rental unit and short-term residential rental licenses, fees, and R-31-19 rental unit and short-term residential rental licenses, fines on first reader. Could I get a motion for that, please?
so moved. But I
Second.
thought it was in the consent calendar, the short term.
No,
No?
I think it's something Ellie wanted to put forward on first reader today. So,
still one updated, so it's back in
okay.
April. I thought it was
Thank you.
fixed. Do I talk to
So I moved.
and a second, thank you. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. The City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with the update from the mayor.
I would like to take a moment of silence. I was going to make a joke about this as my update, but we've got a long day today, so I will not do that, and I've done some long ones. But I would like to take a moment of silence for the young man whose life was lost on Forest Drive this weekend, who was a very important person to the community. It was a senseless act. Somebody has lost their child, and I'd please indulge me on a moment of silence. Thank you. Thank you. Petitions and reports. Alderman Pound.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Audit Committee will be meeting in this very room next Monday at 8 o'clock. We did not meet last month, so we have a very hearty agenda, and looking forward to some good discussion on, particularly on the audit of recreation and parks, which should be commencing any day now. Thank you.
Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock here in Council Chambers, the Rules and City Government Committee will be meeting. Our agenda is posted. And on another note, I spent 3 days last week at LGAC, which is the Local Government Advisory Committee. We advise the governors and the mayor of Washington, D.C. on Chesapeake Bay cleanup efforts. And we monitor and follow where we are in meeting our 2026 goals. And so I know I don't want to take any more time, but I do have handouts for everyone. One is the Bay Journal, which I think you may have gotten the last time I went. And the newest item is the Bay Barometer, which kind of gives you a true update on where we are with our meeting our TMDL's maximum daily loads. So I'll ask Regina to hand these out for us. Or I can just pass them around. I know. And there is one other document, I'm sorry, which is financing urban tree canopy programs. I only have one copy of this. We can get additional copies, but if anybody's interested in looking at it, please get it from me. Thank you.
Any other petitions, reports? Thank you so much. Ms. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
Okay. Just had 3 people signed up so far. And the first person is Deborah Fresica. Please come forward, state your name and full address. Thank you.
Is the mic on?
Little button down the bottom. Yeah.
Deborah Frasico, 160 Green Street, around the corner. And I'd like to express concerns about a number of the proposed changes to short-term rental rules.
Oh, now okay. Sorry. I'd like to express concerns over a number of the proposed changes to the short-term rental rules that are on the agenda for today. My husband, who's a USNA grad, and I'm also a Navy vet, purchased his second home here in Annapolis about 6 years ago, and we use it for frequent visits to Annapolis and decided to also offer it for vacation rentals, especially to other Naval Academy families. We're licensed by the city, and we've paid more than $30,000 in sales taxes to the city and the state over the last 6 years. We've maintained excellent relationships with our neighbors and have never had complaints about noise or other issues. I fully support the need for licenses, taxes, inspections, and rules. However, I'm opposed to a couple of the changes that have been proposed. One is the requirement for principal residence. I think that for many people who would like to have a vacation home, this is an ideal location. And for many military families who are, stationed here for a while and then have to be transferred, that becomes a secondary home for them. They may not want to give up that home, but they would like to, maintain it and come back here someday. Using it as a short-term rental property, it may allow them to do that. So I think that, that is something that needs to be considered in saying that there are no short-term rentals for non-principal property owners. My other major concern is the placement of an arbitrary limitation on the number of days that property can be rented. And as long as the property is well maintained, and it seems that to me it would be of interest to the city and the tourism industry in the city to allow rentals to occur without limitation. Especially since with the proposed number of 120 days, since any resident any owner in the city can rent their home for commissioning week and boat show weeks, which end up being about 25 days, it seems to cut in significantly to the other times that one could rent. And I would suggest that those at least be added to the 120-day rule if that stands. In addition, many short-term renters consider renting to people during the state legislative session, and those 90 days would also have a significant impact on your ability to rent during other very busy tourist times of the year. We got involved with these rentals because we love the town and we love historic homes and we love the academy, and we feel we're good neighbors and we provide a positive experience to visitors to the lovely city and support the important tourism industry so we can have a Main Street that isn't full of big box places. So I'd like to have that be considered. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Mayor.
Alderman Onet?
Thank you for your comments, and there's certainly things that we had debated in the development of the rule, but it would be very helpful if you could send them to us, to our city email.
Absolutely.
I'm sure we're going to, I already have gotten a lot of emails. I'm sure we will get more, but we do take them seriously, and it would be helpful.
Great, I'd be very happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Tom Rikus. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Mayor Buckley, City Council members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tom Rikus. I live at 163 Prince George Street, right downtown Annapolis, Maryland, 21401. I'm not here this morning to speak on parking. As a matter of fact, I'm here this morning to speak favorably on O26-19. Now, I haven't really drilled down into the legislation. However, I will say this. Short-term rentals are a growing concern within the historic district in Annapolis. What I noted in working on the parking issues is a growing trend of property sales where investors are picking up the properties and renting them out, short-term rentals. In my opinion, this is having an adverse impact on the character of our neighborhoods. On my block, 50% of the properties are non-owner occupied short-term rentals. In conversations with the city, I've been encouraged as a steward of a property to be alert for those trash cans that are left out and lingering for days on end, to be alert for trash that accumulates, and to help the city in the enforcement efforts of those properties. Putting that aside, I recognize that this will be a challenge to the City Council and to the residents of Annapolis. I know from personal experience, however, that when we engage in that collaborative dialogue, like we did on the parking problem, we can come up with a good solution. I believe that this legislation is a good start. It may not be the end, but it is a good start. Thank you very much for introducing this today.
Thank you, Tom. Next up, Patricia McNally.
Good morning, Mayor Buckley, City Council members. My name is Patricia McNally, and I too live at 163 Prince George Street. And he did say a few things I was going to say. However, I support Ordinance 02619. I've worked in international and domestic tourism for most of my adult life. I also use STRs for traveling domestically and internationally, and I welcome STRs for visitors in this city. However, my main concerns involve the erosion of the neighborhoods, which Mr. Rikas mentioned. Sense of place, if we're defining Annapolis, if we're doing all this great planning for Annapolis, we need to have a sense of place. What is Annapolis? Is it all one big hotel? Or is it a place where residents, we can say to people, hey, where do the residents go? It's coming to the point where I don't know where the residents go. They go outside the city because they can't get into the places inside. Livability and fairness, and with the livability and fairness, I believe if hotels, B&Bs have to pay taxes to our city, and STRs, many of them do not, that this causes undue burden on the residents, so the taxes keep rising. So I support this. I think we need stronger regulations, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of conversation coming up. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Patricia. Anyone else would like to come forward and speak? Please come forward now. State your name and address.
My name is Judy Jones, and I live at 10 Fleet Street. I wasn't prepared to speak today because I didn't think we could speak about something on record for first reader, but that's my own ignorance, not has anything to do with you all. But I just am concerned, as Pat has mentioned and Tom has mentioned, about the fabric of the neighborhood. Tom quoted Prince George Street as having 50% Fleet Street has 40% of short-term rentals, non-owner occupied. As far as I know, because I've done a lot of research on this, 50%, 40%. My street has been declared in danger. I believe it's a C1. You have to correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a C1A. It's been designated as an historic street, and I really think it is no longer an historic street with 40% of people residing there. This concerns me a great deal. The principle, the idea of 100, is it 120 days? Again, please correct me if I'm wrong. That, I think, is a fair assessment, but I love the idea of somebody having to be a resident who has a house, a primary house, in Annapolis, and is entitled to one short-term rental. Right now we have on the street, at the very top of the street on East Street, someone who owns, he's an investor, he owns 3 properties in Annapolis, another one on East Street, and then another one on Martin's Lane. So I really think there's a lot more to delve into, but as a primary as an initial attempt at this legislation, I think it's a good idea. I would love to see more about taxation in this. Airbnb is now requiring, as of, I believe, June 1st, or it could be July 1st, that short-term rentals pay the tax to them. But again, please correct me, I have not done this research except very quickly. And I'd like to see that tax legislation go in, and I really would wish the city would really look into applying a local tax to these short-term rentals, because it is so important. We could earn over $1 million per year from these short-term rentals, so that I would like to see included. But as Tom said, I think this is a start, and I appreciate the efforts of the older men and women who have done this. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next up, please, come forward.
Morning.
Hi there.
I'm Monique Lighthart, and I'm a local realtor at Coldwell Banker. I've been a realtor for 19 years. I love Annapolis. I've lived here for a bunch of years.
Your address too, please. Thank you.
I've lived and worked here for at least 25 years. And
just state your address. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Just have to put your address for the record. Thank you very
I'm sorry.
much. Thank you.
My residential address is 3290 Green Ash Road in Davidsonville.
Thank you.
I have one property in Annapolis that I lived in for a few years, and then I moved to Edgewater, and now I'm in Davidsonville, and that's a long-term rental. But I've also operated a short-term rental since a year. I've gotten my license from the city, and I welcome the luxury tax. I am not opposed to paying a tax. I think that's very fair. And I do welcome regulation, but I don't think you want to outlaw non-resident Airbnbs. One reason is because there is a big need for it. Everybody that comes to my Airbnb, they want to know the restaurants, they want to know all the sites in Annapolis. So there's a lot of revenue there from Airbnb guests because they do go to the local restaurants. And also the shops here on Main Street. There's many shops that depend on tourism, and there's a shortage of hotel rooms and Airbnbs because my place is booked out 2 years in advance for commissioning week, of course, and boat shows. So there is a big need for it. Also, my neighbor, she is buying a house and thinking of running an Airbnb, and she runs the Navy Stadium parking lot with her husband. Every time with big events, people say, oh, we have to come all the way from Baltimore because we can't get a room in Annapolis. And so why do we want to send our business to Baltimore when we can have businesses here in Annapolis? And I remember many times where a lot of the shops over here on Main Street were totally empty. the rents are high and people need revenue to be able to afford to keep shops there. So I don't think local residents would want to see the scene change where there's empty shops everywhere because there's not enough rooms. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward? All right. How you doing, Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris Ledoux, 215 Severn Avenue, Annapolis. Alderpersons, Mayor, staff, I'll be brief because I know you have a long day ahead. I'd like to speak on O2619, which I know is on first reader. I would like to thank Alderperson Finlayson and Arnett for their leadership on working on this important piece of legislation that has been a long time in the making. I'd also like to thank them for listening and working with many residents and people in the city with a lot of different perspectives. I think it's been a good conversation and a good process. And I think from some of the testimony you're hearing this morning, I think on balance, O2619 is a good piece of legislation and a good starting place. I'm sure as we work through the hearings and the process, there'll be amendments along the way or other issues that come along, but I support it and I believe it is a good balance and a good compromise for a lot of the, I wouldn't say competing interests, I would say complementary interests. That said, I'd like to thank also a lot of my neighbors who have been part of that conversation, also planning and zoning staff, both the former and current director, Chief of Enforcement John Manessa, some of the inspectors, and the Office of Law. I look forward to coming back at the committee hearings and public testimony when we have a fuller opportunity to address some of the details. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Alderman Arnett has a question.
I put this in my last email, but just so everyone will know, this is first reader. It will next go to the Planning Commission. So they'll, and I don't know, their agenda's very full. I'm not sure when it will be heard, but it's not imminent. Then it'll come back to Rules and City Government. So I'm thinking probably early fall. So we appreciate everybody coming out. There will be a number of additional opportunities for public input, which, as I said earlier, we really do like to get and do listen to. So that's a sense of where this is in the schedule.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Heidi Rothenhaus. I live at 198 Acton Road here in the city in Ward 1. And I am also the treasurer of the Truxton Heights Residents Association. I'm here this morning to make a comment in support of a budget amendment that our alderwoman has proposed. We are in favor of supporting the addition of a professional traffic engineer for the city of Annapolis. My neighborhood is one that has very narrow streets, curvy lanes, up and down, no curbs through most of it, and almost no sidewalks. And yet we have the same 25-mile-an-hour speed limit that the state and others endorse for our area. It's clearly unsafe. And we have tried now for years to get some sort of accommodation to our special circumstance. And we really feel like we need some support from an ongoing professional who comes to understand the neighborhood's particular needs and complexities of Annapolis, our peninsulas, our bridges, and the rest of it. And I think particularly as a driver on Forest Drive and the rest of it, I can also say that not only for our neighborhood, but for many neighborhoods, it would be a really important addition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak? Seeing no motion, I declare the comments by the general public closed. Ms. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar include the first readers, starting with O2619, rental unit and short-term residential rental licenses, R2819, Larkin Street commemoration, R2919, Equal Protection Task Force, African American residents, Next is legislation on second reader with R2619, rental operating licenses and inspections of Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis properties. And finally are the business and miscellaneous items, beginning with GT 1019 OEM fire transfer from various fiscal year 17 state homeland security projects to a transfer to other various fiscal year 17 state homeland security projects. SA 5719 recreation and parks youth triathlon revenue. General fund gifts and donations, the expenditures outdoor recreation, youth triathlon supplies. SA 5819 recreation and parks, youth triathlon revenue, general fund gifts and donations, expenditure is outdoor recreation, youth supplies. SA 5919 recreation and parks, Stanton Center revenue, general funds gifts and donations, the expenditures, Stanton Center supplies. SA 6019 OEM fire, fiscal year 18, State Homeland Security Program project revenue, grant revenue, fiscal year, State Homeland Security Program projects, and the expenditures, contract services. That's the end of the consent calendar.
Are there any objections? Alderman Rodriguez, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could we please remove R2619, rental operating licenses and inspections of Housing Authority of the City of Annapolis properties from the consent calendar? And I'd also like O2619 referred to the Housing and Human Welfare Committee. And I would like to be added as a sponsor to R2919, Equal Protection Task Force. Please.
I want to sponsor that too. Thank you. Is it mine?
Oh. And can we put the resolution R2619 at the beginning of the agenda? Is that possible?
Wait a minute. You got to finish with your consent calendar before you
Okay.
move stuff around, because you just remove stuff from the consent calendar. So let's finish that, and then you can do whatever you need to do next. And you are removing what item again, just for clarification?
R2619.
Okay.
Moving to the end of the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're amendments.
Are there any objections to the items on the consent calendar as amended? Okay. Hearing no objection, I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. Oh.
Mr. Mayor, could it?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay, I apologise. It's just the. Yeah, if you can't hear, that's not a good thing. Yeah. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. Well, let's start over again. Alderman Rodriguez.
Can you remove R2619, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know about that. Thank you.
It goes to the end of the agenda.
So it just gets moved to the back of the agenda so we can discuss it more at the end of the meeting. And
Mr. Mayor, maybe you need to explain what the consent calendar is. How, you know.
Alderman Finlayson will explain to you.
We don't take all of these items individually. We take them as a group. Many of them are first readers. Many of them have to do with financial, accepting monies.
Yeah.
So instead of dealing with each one, we lump them together, and it's on a consent calendar. So we can send approval of all of these things.
None of them are relevant to the rental.
Yeah.
Alderman Payon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions. How does something get on the consent calendar to begin with? I would note that O2619, and I don't know whether I'm going to be supporting it or opposing it. Originally, I was going to be a sponsor, since I worked with my colleagues, Alderman Arnett and Alderwoman Finlayson, on this. But it seems like this is something that's going to be controversial and not really appropriate for the consent calendar. Now, it is for first reader, but how do we make sure that this doesn't come out on the consent calendar when it's time for a second and third reader? And
I can speak to the consent calendar. The consent calendar holds items that don't have any amendments. They have the first readers, second readers if they don't have any amendments, and any item that's already been previously approved by the standing committees, like the GTs and the SAs.
All right. So that it's on for first reader for today, that doesn't mean it's going to be on the consent calendar when it comes up again?
No, if there are amendments, it will not be on the consent calendar. You can't
Okay.
put
Thank you.
legislation with amendments on the consent.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Hold on 1 second. One second, please. Mayor Buckley.
Yes.
Alderman Tierney.
I but recused on the STR legislation.
The what?
The STR legislation.
We just
Say it again.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't really hear what you're saying.
Okay.
Your mic wasn't on.
I've recused myself from the short-term rental legislation, so I'm just asking if approval of the consent calendar is okay for me to do.
Well,
Okay, I approve. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Alderman Payon.
Aye.
Alderman Penel-Charles.
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson.
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez.
Aye.
Alderman Savage.
Aye.
Alderman Arnett.
Aye.
Thank you. The City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
No, it's going to be last. The last thing we do today, R26, yes.
All right, the next item on the agenda is legislative action on second reader, beginning with Charter Amendment CA219, City Manager Powers and Duties.
Is there a motion to adopt CA-2-19
The second reader.
on second reader?
Okay, coffee break.
Okay, no motion, so then that's good. We expected that, right?
No motion to adopt on second reader?
I'll move to adopt. CA 219.
Give me a second. Is there a second?
Okay.
Mayor, he needs a second.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it, yes.
Okay. Do you want to give some explanation, Teresa?
This one's in your guys' hands.
Yeah.
This is Rob's.
No, this
he
is
just
the,
moved the charter.
so this charter amendment is the one that removes supervising the daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy from being under the city manager, and then it makes a stylistic change to human resources. So if you adopt it, it removes the Office of Environmental Policy from being under me, and it makes a stylistic change. If you don't adopt it, the Office of Environmental Policy remains as is, and the stylistic change doesn't happen, which I personally don't think is a big deal.
Alderman Tierney?
Just, could you clarify what, in that process, what happens to the decision on the Human Resource Office?
Nothing. The way it's worded, if you look on page 2, lines 27 and 29, it's currently worded that the city manager's duties are to supervise the daily operations of the Office of Emergency Management Technology and to supervise the daily operations of environmental policy. There was a stylistic change to make number 10 to supervise the daily operations of the Human Resources Office. Right now it says my duty is to administer the Human Resources affairs. So that change is simply stylistic.
Has it been moved to the floor?
Yes.
Okay.
Seconded. This discussion.
Okay.
Sorry, where am I?
So do you want to bring forward those amendments, please?
Yeah.
Yeah, ask us if does anyone have an amendment. You have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I'd like to move that we adopt Savage Amendment 1, which is...
Let's just do them one by one, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
Got a second on that? Discussion? Rob, what's the...
Yeah, this is just this is assuming it kind of goes along with some of the other amendments. All this does is unstrike 10, because the other amendments that I'll be proposing will keep the language as written, which would be to supervise the daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy, and it'll just restore it basically to what it was originally.
Okay. Alderwoman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess I'm a little confused. And I have the same or similar question as Alderwoman Tierney. How does, I guess, if we don't pass this amendment, then it keeps things the way they are. Is that correct?
All this amendment does, I have other amendments that are proposing to keep things as is, with the Office of Environmental Policy still being supervised by the city manager's office. But this first amendment is just not striking the 10, because if we do make the other changes, you need to keep that number 10 in there, so it's a list like it currently is.
Maybe it's a bit premature until we get to the other portion.
Probably. I mean, that's, yes.
Yeah,
so
I think
this is
that's-
just listed first. So
Right. I
if
think
people want
maybe
to take it in the proper order,
I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. So I'll withdraw that proposal for the time being.
Okay,
And
thank you. Let's move to the next one. CA
Thank you. Thank you,
2-19 amendment. Is that Alderman Arnett? Do you want to?
Because Peter hadn't been working, I wish it was going to work today.
It's Amendment 3.
Sorry. So the problem, this one is not the same as the one that Alderman Savage. We have a number of proposals to...
Can I just ask a question for clarification? Are you speaking to Amendment 3, Arnett, Payon, Finlayson?
I don't know what I'm speaking to at this point,
So we
because
moved
I
on to the
don't...
next one was CA-2-19.
It's Amendment
It's
3.
the Arnett Payon Finlayson amendment.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Amendment 3.
So, which is on page 2.
No, it says on page 2, on lines 18 and 22, after mayor, insert and city council.
I'm on here.
Right.
If you're looking in Legistar, it's listed as Amendment number 3.
It's Amendment, yes.
Right.
So you would like
Right.
To
So...
move
the city manager to report to you and the
No,
mayor?
not to report. This says advise.
Yeah, I'm on Grand.
So, as the charter says, the council are the policymakers, and we need advice. So just as we did on the short-term rental legislation, we had heavy consultation with the Director of Planning and Zoning and John Manessa. And that helps us understand the applicability or the implementation of our legislation. The city manager, having purview over the entire city operations, we need to have the ability to get advice from the city manager. So this makes it only the mayor. And what this amendment suggests is for these two places, we should have a collegial relationship when we're making policy and support from the city manager. I value that, and I don't see how we can operate without it. So this is not anything to do with supervision. This is saying that we can go in as individuals or groups to the city manager's officer and say, I'm worried about such and such, we'd like to do some legislation, but how do you think that can be done? What staff should do it? All of those kinds of things. Just as we've had over time with city managers. So this has nothing to do with supervision or giving directives. It is opening this up so that we can seek advice and counsel, not just you.
Alderman Pendle Charles.
Mr. Mayor, and I hear what Alderman Arnett is saying, and I'm looking at my question for this amendment, and my question is to our city attorney, and does this run afoul of the Office of Law Opinion?
Can I just get a clarification? Rob, did you second that? Did you second it?
Nobody
Yeah.
did.
Yes, I'll second it.
Okay.
Am I good now? Okay. The advisory part doesn't necessarily, it's actually the second part of the amendment that says, line 22, but I think it's actually it is line 22.
It's a different amendment.
It's the same amendment. No, it's not.
Because
It's the same amendment.
Number 3.
That is a different amendment.
18 and 22.
It's line 18 and 22. Line 18 is the advisory function. Line 22 is perform such duties not inconsistent with this charter as may be delegated by the mayor, proposed, and city council from time to time. That does, as I stated in my legal opinion, bring up concerns related to violations of the charter, where I believe it would be resulting in the city council directing department directors and employees of the city through the city manager. So I think it would be a violation of the charter.
So you're saying 18 is legally sufficient, but line
Performing
20,
an advisory function, yes, is
but 22 is not.
correct.
Then,
Mr.
Alderman
Mayor,
Payan is next.
does anyone have any hard copies of the amendments? My Granicus isn't working as usual, and they're not on the Legistar here that the city posts on their website. I have no idea what we're talking about, frankly, because I don't have the amendments.
Do we think we can get
Alderman
like
Savage, do you want to summarize that?
Well, I was just wondering if maybe we can get Alderman Payon an iPad that'll work for the rest of the meeting. I don't know if IT may have something handy.
It's going to be a long day. Thank you so much for coming out. Thank you.
So, while we're doing that, I think you were next.
Well, I mean, I'd suggest maybe we separate the two out, because I think the first one there is no legal question about. The second one, there may be. I'd like to discuss those two, but it might be more productive if we separate them out.
Okay. Can I get some clarification from you, Teresa, if they separate them out?
I would defer to the Office of Law to draft a separate amendment that does that, or two separate amendments that do that. The Office of Law is drawing up amendments to everything but 01719, and the finance director and her staff and I have drawn up the amendments to 01719. So I would defer to the Office of Law if the alderpersons want two separate amendments for the Office of Law to draw those up.
That's fine with me.
Yes. It's not going to happen right now, right?
Right. We would,
Well,
I mean, Jacqueline would need time to actually.
As we go
upload
through
and
today,
everything like
if there are changes to amendments that have already been drawn up, including budget amendments, we are going to have to recess
Absolutely.
to make those changes if you want them today.
But this amendment, it doesn't impact the budget. So I don't see why we can't just withdraw and then have two verbal, oral amendments. We've done that a lot because they're very insignificant changes anyway in terms of the code changes.
So I'll withdraw this amendment, and we'll recraft it into two amendments.
Let me just say, you can't withdraw an amendment unless you fully vote it all the way out. If it has a second and you don't do it, we just take it out and you start over again. You
so
don't have to withdraw it.
It has
It's
a first
not
and a second.
moved. Yeah, but
So-
it's not
So
on.
I would offer an amendment to this
separate.
amendment to drop the reference to line 22.
Okay, so
And I'll second that.
okay, so basically, you guys are saying that we're going to recess for a few minutes while we
No.
create the.
No, there's no need
Amendments.
to. There's
No.
no need to recess.
The notes should be sufficient.
If
If
you-
we make a motion on the floor, you have a record of it. We don't need a paper copy in front of us. At least that's not Robert's rules.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
been moved and seconded.
Mm-hmm.
So do they just need to vote no on that amendment and then introduce
yeah.
verbally a new amendment that does the first one, and introduce verbally a new amendment that does the second one.
Yes, but the reason why I said that is because Alderman Payon did request paper.
Right.
So it's up to you.
I
how you
understand, but I just
proceed.
want to make sure, because it's been moved and seconded, the next action is a vote.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
May I ask to repeat the motion?
Right. My motion
for-
was to
Amendment 3.
amend the moved and seconded amendment to drop the reference to line
Yes.
22.
No, that's not correct. Your motion
That
was.
was my motion.
No, that was the second one.
Okay.
The first motion was Amendment 3, the way that it is, and it was seconded.
Right.
So
So
you
now
need to
then-
vote on it. You need to.
We can
vote on
always
it.
amend seconded motions. We always have.
Guess not.
I'm sorry, the first motion was seconded.
Right.
And in the course of the discussion, another amendment to the amendment was made and seconded. So that one should take precedent. We should vote on the second amendment first, and then the amendment as amended. Okay. You're the city clerk.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna
You can
defer-
never amend an amendment.
Yeah.
You can only amend a
You
piece of
have an-
legislation.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not legislation, it's an amendment, so we can't do it. So I'm going to vote on this after Alderman Tyranny puts her 2 cents in there.
Could I make a movement to vote on
Amendment 3.
amendment number 3 for Charter Amendment 2-19 as it's on the floor to be voted on? Can I move to vote?
So no, we're still on
Okay,
we're still on Amendment 3. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's
Amendment
had a
number
first and a
3.
second.
Okay, amendment number 3 that Alderman Arnett already made was seconded. All you have to do is all in favor, carry it, or defeat it.
Okay,
And then we can
so
continue
you go.
with that amendment separated verbally, stated verbally.
So you're asking us to defeat it and then
Absolutely.
come back and make the second
Absolutely.
amendment?
But according to Robert's rules, we can amend an amendment. That is in Robert's rules.
After it's seconded?
Well, let's get a legal opinion on
You
that.
can only amend it once, but yeah, amend an amendment once.
I think you're going to have to make the call.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know.
Guys,
keep it clean. With all of the amendments, I agree with Teresa. The cleanest way to keep it is to start over, so everybody out there can follow. They don't have the document on paper either. So everybody will be clear what you're voting on if you state them separately, especially with the budget, and we're gonna have lots of amendments. Just want to be transparent.
Okay, so we're going to vote on this. Okay?
Yes.
So all those in favour of CA 2-19, Amendment 3, Arnett Payon Finlayson Amendment,
Move on, Alderman Arnett.
say. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, so the motion is defeated.
Motion is defeated. Now, do you want to bring it up? How do they bring it back up?
Do it separately, one at a time.
Yeah. shoot.
Now,
Okay.
Alderman Savage, you want to bring it up?
Yeah, so I guess I'll move a new amendment number 3, which would be on page 2, lines 18, after mayor, insert, and city council.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that? Okay, let's take a vote on that.
I'm sorry, is that, you're talking about line 18?
Correct, yeah.
And that is the one that we have an opinion from the,
That's the one that speaks to advisory functions only, which are
And
not
that
inconsistent
passes
with
legal
charter.
muster?
Correct.
okay, all those in favour say aye.
aye. That motion passed.
I think you knew, just voted on no. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, amendment number 4.
Yeah.
So we've just added mayor and city council to that. Right. Okay, and that was the one that we think is
Fine.
no legal issues with that. Okay. Let's get the second one forward, please. Alderman Savage.
I'll move amendment 3B. Whatever. It is. We don't have it. So it'd be amendment, whatever, 3B, that would be on page 2, lines 22, after mayor, insert, and city council.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Well, but what we had said in the committee was, and work with city council members, not take direction, but work with city council members. So perform such duties as not consistent with the charter, this charter, as may be delegated by the mayor from time to time, and work with city council members on those matters.
Is that how it's worded now?
It's not, that's not how it's worded now, but that is what we discussed, Alderwoman Finlayson, Alderman Payon, and I discussed at the Finance Committee meeting when we took this up.
Okay, let's get some clarification from the city manager.
Mr. Mayor, I was part of those discussions. I will simply say that your Finance Committee report says, page 2, line 22, add and City Council. So that was the recommendation of the Finance Committee that went into their report.
So would it be possible for them to adjust the wording and put work instead of direct?
I have no opinion.
Okay, Alderwoman Pindell Charles.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'm trying to find out where we want to go, and we're going to ask our legal counsel what would be appropriate language that would pass legal muster.
I think even as proposed by Alderman Arnett, there's still issues with that specific section of the charter because it says to perform duties that as may be delegated by the mayor, so it kind of doesn't make sense to say and work with the city council in there. It's not, it wouldn't be very clear. So if we're going to put that in there, I'd want that to be somewhere else within the powers and duties and not within that particular subsection.
All right, so may I respond?
Alderman Arnett?
Yes, so these are now new duties that are not described, perform duties not inconsistent with, but are new duties. And it seems to me that if there's new duties that the mayor has delegated to the city manager, that the council ought to be able to work with the city manager in the same spirit as line 18 to understand what these new duties are, where they're going. So if it's more appropriate someplace else as a charter amendment, fine. But the point was that we wanted to have in the definition of the city manager this collegial arrangement where the city manager and the council, which includes the mayor, are working together. I don't think that is something new in the experience of the city, and I think that it is a desirable thing to have happen. So that's the spirit of what this amendment would be. These are new duties. We don't know what they are, but we need to work with the city manager on the new duties.
We think you currently do. So it's on the floor. It's got a second.
I still want further clarification based on Alderman Arnett's comments from our legal counsel.
I guess I'm not really following what you mean by new duties that
Well, read 22. This is line 22.
Right.
Is discussing and shall perform duties not inconsistent with the charter that may be delegated by the mayor. So those aren't current duties. These are duties that are not inconsistent and may be delegated by the mayor. So there's, unless you're saying he's going to delegate duties that the city manager was always doing, I think the clear implication in the sense of this is these are new things. If there's new things, we all ought to be in on it. If there's a better place to put it in the code, I can't think of it offhand, then we can put it there. I don't know what the disturbing aspect of working with the city council on these new duties would be.
there isn't a disturbing aspect of that. It's if you blur the lines of delegating duties to the city manager by the city council, then it becomes a separation of powers issue. So that's why I'm hesitant to put anything in that particular subsection other than what it states now.
Question on that, though, because I do have a question on that because, we're not proposing to allow individual council members to direct the city manager, but I think we have in the past passed resolutions that clearly set a policy, if you want to call that a policy directive or a policy of new duties that would fall underneath that. That, I think, as a body, if we have a majority, we set the policy. It's up to the city manager and staff to implement it. So I don't see that as being a conflict of our separation of powers. I think it's an extension of our ability to get policy enacted.
I would object to the use of the word majority. I don't, that would sound like we're doing a resolution. We can do that already. I'm just saying that we now have a new set of duties, whatever they are. Bridge construction, just to pick something. And those have been delegated. They're new, and I just would like it to be clear that those new things, the council will work on those things with the city manager. And I don't see anything onerous in here at all, or impeding the prerogatives and powers of the mayor. Certainly not, that's not the intent.
Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have a really crass statement to make. What do we pay Ms. Carey for to be our legal counsel? I think we need to follow her direction. That's what she's here for. We may not necessarily agree with her, but she is our legal counsel. And to go back and forth on this, I think, I won't say it's disrespectful, but I will say that we're not, what's the word? Not listening well, I guess. Thank you.
So I'm going to call a question here. So I think that it's...
Well, you need a vote to call a question.
So you've got a first and a second on this. So we can, I think we can take a vote on it.
You need a vote to call a question.
Right.
You need a second.
Okay. Does someone? Okay.
The motion that's on the floor, please.
So it's part 2 of CA-2-19.
No, it's a vote on calling the question.
She asked for the motion. What motion?
What-
you were
No,
voting?
he
I
made
just
his
wanna
motion
repeat-
first to call the question, which means that has to be seconded and voted on.
Okay.
I'm seconding the motion to call the question.
So maybe you need. So
Question the motion to.
oh my God. So
I want to amend the motion to call the question.
You need a
I
second.
still don't know what we're voting on.
It's 9 of you, so
Is it 18?
5 is the majority.
We're voting on
6,
call the question.
if we say-
okay. So I'm just trying to move us along. It's a long day. This is the first one. For goodness sake. We know where everyone stands. So this is the motion to call the question. All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Okay. Does that pass?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, on part 2 of C-2-19, the Arnett Pound Finlay Centre motion.
All in favor.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
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 Sounds defeated to me.
Roll call.
It'll be a long day. Mayor Buckley?
No.
No.
Alderman Tierney?
No.
Alderman Payne?
Aye.
Alderman Pindell Charles?
No.
Alderman Finlayson?
I'm abstaining. I'm confused.
Alderman Rodriguez?
No.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Right, cool.
The motion is passed. Because 8 of you. Mm-hmm. I know she abstained, so that doesn't count as a vote. It's
May
2
I ask a
noes
question?
and 3 yeses.
Yes, Alderman
Because I'm
Finlayson.
still unclear on what that vote was on. And I will go back and vote, but I need to be clear. Are we voting on amendment
3.
3?
The second part.
This is the new amendment,
3B.
It's 3.
which only includes line 18.
No, 22.
22.
18 was voted on and
Yeah, we
passed.
voted on 18. That was for 22.
Okay, so this is line
22.
22. Still abstaining.
Oh, yeah, no, say no. It passed. I'm sorry. The motion fails. I am sorry.
I didn't hear you.
The motion fails. You have 4 noes, 1 abstain, and 3 yes.
Okay, then.
Okay, let's move on,
Okay.
because it's only 11:14. I'm going to make you guys skip lunch if you keep doing this.
I second.
Okay, we're going to move on to Alderman Savage.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we adopt amendment number 4, the Finlayson Savage Arnett amendment.
Amendment 4-4 and 5.
I'll second
Just
that.
4.
Okay. Got a second on that? Can I get? Can you elaborate on it for us, please? Alderman Savage, Alderman Arnett.
So it used to be that we would get monthly reports from the city manager. One of the startling things that came to light during the budget hearings was a comment by Director Gerald that there was a fire in the water purification plant. We had no idea of that. That's just one of many things that go on each month, and if you happen to know about it, you happen to know about it. If you don't, you don't. I also think that now that we have performance measures, it would be important to have a report on how we're doing on performance measures, if there's some progress, something notable. But there are a lot of things that go on in the city, many of which you are aware of, some of which some of us are aware of, but I think that it would be a good idea, and I'm partnering this with adding the assistant city manager, because I know how, and I saw the city manager here last week till 11 o'clock at night, so I know how long her days are. But I think that this is something where the council needs to understand what's going on with the departments, and it was something that we've done in the past, and this is being offered so that we can get it again.
Thank you. Alderman Pindell-Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to agree with Alderman Arnett for the fact of this, I think, makes sense, especially if we are voting for assistance, giving assistance to our city manager in whatever format she deems appropriate, because I could see this being overly burdensome on her with these monthly reports. I did enjoy reading them, but she has a lot of additional duties. But I will vote in favor of amendment number 4 if we agree that she will need some help in whatever form she sees best.
Alderwoman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. 2 comments. First is I don't think we should tie this into, or partner, whatever the word my colleague used, into another piece of legislation. We should look at this in isolation. And I have some misgivings in the sense that the previous city manager reports that were done by Ms. Sutherland's predecessor were almost by the time he collected all of the pertinent information from the department heads, it was a month old. So it was helpful to know what did happen. I'm not sure from what my colleague asked for, these are very timely pieces of information that couldn't possibly be in a report. I think you're talking more about fluid conversation between the city manager and all of us. So I'd like a little bit more definition on what you expect in these city manager reports.
Well, first of all, I think that's to be determined, but early on in this administration, the city manager sent us all an email and asked us about the monthly reports. I, for one, responded. I actually responded that I didn't find Mr. Andrews' monthly reports particularly helpful, because it was just a unorganized collection of things, tables on numbers of calls for service and things like that. My view is if we're going to have a collegial relationship, I would trust the city manager to put in the report the things that the city manager feels we need to know about the operations of the city, the day-to-day operations. And I would like it to be short and sweet, not multiple pages. And that's what I responded back. It's useful information, things that we need to know. It's also information so that if a constituent comes up and says, what about that fire at the water treatment plant? I'm going to say, yeah, we got it all under control and that all worked out well. Unfortunately, there was really no damage and that sort of stuff. Or what about this or that? That we're armed with knowing what's going on. And I would be more than happy to rely on the judgment of the city manager of what it is that he or she thinks are important things for us to be up to speed on. And we can always make requests. Gee, I'd like to know more about outreach for One Annapolis in Parks and Rec. I hear that a lot of good things are going on, but we don't have a report on that. So I think that it's something that will be fluid, but it is something that is necessary. I personally would prefer it be very brief. If it was 5 pages or less, I would be really happy. But that's something that needs to get worked out.
Alderman Alderman
Yes, thank you.
Finlayson, sorry. You're next up, then Alderman Savage. Yeah.
I don't think we can separate this out from the city manager's additional assistant. For the second year, I'll support giving the city manager the support that she needs. When that department was created, the idea was to have an actual city manager's department, not one person standing alone with the expectation that he or she will do everything that we request, the mayor requests. That's unreasonable. And we can see with the amount of work that she has to do now, and I hate to make it personal, but it is at this moment. So additional staff is necessary. And these reports are necessary also. Mr. Andrews did it one way, Ms. Sutherland can do it another way. In my mind, the department heads would simply write up what happened in the last month, and it's just compiled and sent to us. You know, doesn't need editorializing, you know, none of that. Just a communication piece so we know what's going on. The alternative is what we do now. I go to the different department heads to find out what's going on, and we all do the same thing. So that means 8 or 9 or 10 people are asking our directors kind of the same information. Or it may only be 3 of us. But they're having to repeat themselves for each of us who ask. In finance, Mr. Gerald, Director Gerald, came before us with a list of 22 projects that his department had completed or were in the process of. We were completely stunned and impressed, and the community should know what is going on in those departments. Had we been having those monthly reports, we would have been up on that. But we get it later because we don't know to ask. But this project, this reporting monthly, could be extremely valuable and a good communication tool. So we keep up with what's going on. And if you choose not to read it, that's fine. And if a department doesn't do anything, you know, noteworthy for the month, not that you all don't always do noteworthy things, don't get me wrong. But so there's nothing in it from a given department, you know, at that time. So I think this is a good thing. And yes, it needs to be tied to the support of the city manager's department. Thank you.
So next is Alderman Savage, then Alderman Turney, and then I'm going to let Teresa give some clarification too, please. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to second what my colleague from Ward 4 had said. And in defense of Mr. Andrews, I did like the reports he sent out. You could jump to whatever section you wanted. If you wanted to look at crime statistics to see what's increased, you could do that. You can go look at the ridership levels for transportation department. You could get an update on what new permits, what new businesses have opened up in the city. Or if you want an update on capital projects, where they are in the process, it was all in there, and I did find that pretty useful.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to offer just two suggestions, perhaps. One is that as committee chairs, we're always entitled to any information that we want, and I know that we do get planning and zoning reports, et cetera. And the other comment I want to mention is because of the fluidness of this information, perhaps every city council work session we get a respective update. I just don't want to rely on a piece of paper. That I'm torn about this, and I apologize if I'm a little fickle. Thanks.
Rhonda, do you want to go, and then Teresa can give us some. Alderman Pindell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderwoman Finlayson just suggested, and I guess she got it from our city man, made a suggestion that possibly we could have this information provided to us at our work session. But also, another thing is, and I don't want any one of our department heads to throw darts or tomatoes at me, but I do find, and it's based on something Alderman Savage just said, the Economic Development Manager's Office has a great, because they meet monthly, and they come out with an e-newsletter that has all the businesses and who's been there for 5 years and 10 years, and maybe that's based on the minutes of their meeting. Oftentimes, but also the newsletter does come out. It's very helpful. And also, Rec and Parks has an e-newsletter that they come out with that's very helpful once a week. So I'm not asking department heads to do newsletters, but sometimes that kind of galvanizes departments and who had a baby. I mean, nobody may be interested, but that might be a format. So a combination of possibly providing the information at work sessions, maybe with just a monthly newsletter for the departments, but don't throw darts or tomatoes. Thank you.
Thank you. The city manager.
Thank you. So when the former city manager was doing the monthly reports, Alderman is right, Alderman Arnett is correct, that I wrote to you all and asked, how do you feel about these? And I got one response saying, I'd like to see the purchasing information. I believe it was from you, Alderwoman Tierney. And we, said that's on this website. I would suggest to you that you have standing committees. You have a transportation standing committee, so when you want ridership statistics, that can be presented at that standing committee. When you want to know fire, police, and emergency management things, I know you cover that at your public safety committees. When you want to know updates on capital projects, I know all you have to do is ask, and David Gerald will come however often you want him to come to your finance committee meetings. And you all can all watch all of those committee meetings. And we have a monthly work session. We could set up something so that the first item on the agenda each month is an update from the department heads. So there are a multitude of ways to do this. I ask only that you be respectful of the staff's time, because the department heads already work very long hours. For example, Ms. Dickinson already gives a report at the Finance Standing Committee, the Audit Committee, the Financial Advisory Commission. So she's already reporting 3 times on the activities of the Office of Finance. So I would just ask you to consider those things.
Alderman Arnett.
So what I think I'm hearing be proposed is that every council member has to go to every committee meeting. For example, in environmental matters, Planning and Zoning puts together a report that shows the status of all permits. I would have to go to Public Safety to hear it, and I think that what the sense of this is, yeah, we can get all of this information and we could spend all of our time chasing it down, or it could be put in a collated, and again, the sense of this was the things we need to know, and it's there, and it's also documented. So I can't go to every committee meeting, and there's plenty of things They go on in committee meetings that just stay in that committee. So this is intended to be something where we all get the same information at the same time. It can be very much directed towards order of importance. It's not everything that the fire department did or everything that Parks and Recs did, prune trees on South Cherry Grove Avenue or whatever. It's important things, and it's things that are, in the judgment of the city manager, important things. So it's not weighing us down with everything that every department is doing on everything. It is meant to be a document to bring to our attention and keep us up to date and inform us on important things that are going on with the departments and with the administration. Note it says in there also update on the administration. So we used to get, for example, from finance, we used to get budgeted and expended. It was a table, so we could see by department, actually by pro forma line item, all of where we were month to month in terms of what was budgeted and what was expended. We used to get a quarterly briefing from the Office of Law on the status of cases. Some of that is sensitive, can't be put into a public document, but some of it can. This is an attempt to bring us all to the same page. And I understand that it involves work. I agree with Alderwoman Finlayson. It is very much tied to the notion of, which is part of this budget package, staffing for the city manager. Frankly, I've long been in favor of having both a deputy city manager and an assistant city manager. It's kind of what Virginia Burke was. I think there's more than enough work to do, just all the meetings that the city manager has to go to, aside from all the other work. So I understand the level of effort. I do not agree, and I certainly don't agree with loading up our monthly work sessions. We don't have enough time to get to the things that we need to talk about in those work sessions in any event. And so loading them up with this, as opposed to having a document, just seems to me to not be a very productive way to conduct business.
Ms. City Manager, do you get a monthly report from each department?
No, I don't. I'm in frequent contact with my department
Yeah,
heads,
sure.
daily contact with my department heads. I'm aware of what's going on in the departments.
Okay. All right. So let's take a vote on this.
All in favor?
Sir?
All in favor, have a second.
Yep. All those in favour of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Let's move on to the next one, CA2-19. We'll put that forward, Rob.
Oh, we did.
Are we doing amendment number 5 now? Amendment number 5? We did 4.
We do amendment
Oh, wasn't it the same?
It was number.
It wasn't
Amendment.
for round 5?
Well, it was. Yeah, it's number. We're doing number 5.
So this was a clarification years ago. Oops. This is a clarification. Years ago, the council thought they put into the criteria for city manager that the person have ICMA certification and also that they have local government experience, which this says, but it didn't have at the executive level. And so this is adding local government management experience at the executive level, which is different than just being involved in local government. It is saying you've been involved in the operations of a local government. It's a clarification. We had passed ICMA, but we didn't. We then felt you can find good city managers that have local government executive level experience that aren't ICMA certified, but may be just the right person. So that's why.
Glad you're here, Rob. Ross needs a second.
Second?
You're still, so, okay. Alderwoman Kendall Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a really odd question. I don't know what is executive level experience. I don't know what that is.
You're a department director. You could be a city manager elsewhere. So it's someone who actually is managing a large staff, a large budget, the kinds of things that you would be stepping into as city manager. Could be even a larger staff and a larger budget, as was the case with Mr. Andrews. Much larger staff and budget.
So are you saying that Tom Andrews would have qualified? Would the current city manager qualify?
I don't know. Was she a department head?
Yes.
All right, well, then you would qualify.
Thank you. No more discussion?
What line is this? I didn't write down the line.
We got a definition here, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Senior management, executive management, upper management, or management team is generally a team of individuals at the highest level of management of an organization who have the day-to-day tasks of managing that organization, sometimes a company or a corporation. That, of course, is on the private side, but I think we get the picture when it comes to governmental organizations.
Okay. So
Thank you, Alderman Arnett.
So the last two city managers qualified, right? Tom Andrews did, Teresa does, okay.
I mean, Alderman Payon, I'm sorry.
And
we look a lot alike.
and Mike Mellon.
Okay, of course. Okay, let's take a vote, please. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Let's move on to the next one.
Thank you.
Is this?
Amendment number 6, Savage.
So do we need to bring the CA 219 down?
It's,
We're doing 6. We should be on Amendment 6.
Amendment 6.
Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Savage?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to, excuse me, move that we adopt amendment number 6. We'll probably do 7 as well because they're both related.
Okay. We've got a
So
second.
6 and 7.
Second.
Okay, can you elaborate, please?
I have a question.
And actually, can I throw amendment 8 in there as well? The one that adds number 10? Just put them all together. So it'd be 6, 7, and 8. Well, 6, 7, and 1.
6, 7.
There's
and
So the one we moved to the back, yeah?
Yeah, it's the one we moved. Yeah.
Okay, can you elaborate on it?
Right.
Yes. So the only thing that these amendments do is it removes the proposed reorganization to the environmental office. It just keeps it as is, no changes to the current setup. So Amendment 6 on page 2 unstrikes
Line 29.
line 29.
29. Alderman Savage, can you read it for me the way your amendment is supposed to read? I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
Can you start with 8
I can't
and read
multitask
down?
on the iPad. Can I read your-
Can you read from 8 on down, please, on line 27? I just want to make sure I have it right.
The way I proposed to amend it would be to
Yes, sir.
So
Start with line 27.
The line 27 would not change.
Well, it's connected to 28, and it does, so just, can you read it for me, please?
I'm not proposing to change 28, but okay. So line 27 says to supervise the daily operations of the Office of Management Information Technology, and number 9, which is on line 29. My amendments would.
No,
it would
can you
have
just read it the way you want it to look?
Okay.
Yeah. Starting with 27, line 27.
Okay. To supervise the daily operations of the Office of Management Information Technology, and to supervise the daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy, and 10, to supervise the daily operations of the Human Resources Office of the city, including administering a civil service system, and et cetera, et cetera.
So one of those ands got to come off. I guess 28, line 28 and, because you said and then it was another and. It was an and on 28 and an and on 29.
Just grammatical.
I just need, but I'm just trying to
Check with Sheila.
get the flow.
Check with Sheila.
Yeah,
on
it is,
that.
because he crossed it out, but he read it. He read it.
Can I
That's what I'm
accept
saying.
that?
That's why
as a-
I'm confused.
Can I accept that as a friendly amendment? To an amendment?
Yeah, that's what was confusing me. We had an and then we had another and so that's why I needed you to read it through. Okay. To supervise the daily operations of the Office of Management Information Technology, strike the and on 28. To supervise the daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy and administer the human resources of the city, including administering a civil service system. Is that what you proposed?
You didn't get into that.
Is that
No, I
what it
didn't.
is?
I didn't get into the. I didn't change anything on line 30 except for unstriking 10.
I'm confused.
I'm not changing anything associated with human resources.
He's keeping this. You're keeping to supervise the daily operations of the
Correct.
Human Resources Office of the city, including, you're keeping that?
Correct.
And you're also keeping line 9?
Correct. Yeah, I'm proposing to unstrike 9, so be kept.
So, to supervise the daily operations of the Office of Management Information Technology, take off the and. To supervise the daily operations of the Office of Environmental Policy, and to supervise the daily operations of the Human Resources Office of the city, including administering blah, blah, blah. Is that how it's supposed to read?
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion on it? Okay, all those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed? I'm going to oppose it. All right, is there a motion to amend CA-2-19 on second reader?
Wait a minute, we have more amendments.
No, we got another amendment.
Oh, sorry, I thought that was the last one.
Amendment 7.
I thought you got all three
I
of them.
grouped that into
six
it.
and seven.
What's your
I
amendment?
put that all three.
It was
That's
6, 7,
just
and
remove-
1.
That adds 10, number 10.
All right, what about amendment number 1?
He did it.
That was number.
That was number 1.
Did he ask for a second, or did we
It's done.
What's on the floor now? Didn't
So
he?
he included in that, he included it.
We voted not to vote
No.
Oh, you just put it in? Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
Okay, cool.
Sorry, I move that we vote on CA2 as amended.
How about amendment number 7?
We did it.
We did
That was
that.
all in there, yeah.
So moved.
Oh, those were coupled?
Yeah.
Okay. They all accomplished.
The same purpose.
Yeah, that's all what you read out is exactly what you're.
Just don't remember you're doing that, but that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got a motion. Can I get a second for the Arnett motion on CA-2-19, please?
As adopted on
Is there a
second.
second?
Got a second? Great.
Second.
Okay.
I have a question for
Discussion.
the city attorney.
Yep.
We discussed this at finance, and I think you agreed. The 4 section of this charter amendment, now as amended, isn't relevant. We don't have to go back and change that, do we?
Which part of it?
On page 1, lines 21 through 23, where it's for the purpose of removing the Office of Environmental Policy. We just changed that, so that's no longer a 4 statement. There's no legal binding of these 4 statements, right? Once we've amended the charter amendment itself. Otherwise, the 4 statement would need to be amended as well.
No, it would be everything below, like the section 1 and
Okay,
or the
that's, I
charter
just want to
part,
be sure.
the part that's-
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Madam City Manager.
Carrie, the purposes section can remain unamended? Under the Maryland Drafting Manual, I thought you had to change the part at the top, like the title of the bill, as well as the purpose section, because the bill is no longer accomplishing the purpose stated in the purpose section.
I mean, okay, so yeah, you could amend it. I thought that Alderman Arnett was asking if it sort of is memorializing and binding. And would be included in
I
the
think
charter.
I took the question to be, do you have to amend it? If that's no longer the purpose of the bill because of the amendments, do you have to amend lines 2 through 4 and 21 through 23?
2 through 3. Well, I mean, I'd be happy to make
You could
a
do
motion.
it just to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
or
would
do it.
move that we amend page 1, lines 2 and 3 to strike of removing the Office of Environmental Policy from the supervision of the city manager. Now, I don't know, so the purpose of placing supervision of human resources under the city manager would be how it would read with that strikeout.
Mr. Mayor, there's already, Amendment 7 did that.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
On page 2 and 3. All right, you're right. Okay. Thank you. Never mind.
Okay.
All right, so we have a
You ready to
motion.
vote?
Mm-hmm.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Obviously had a different idea. That's okay. I'm happy to put this behind us. Is there a motion to adopt C-A-2-19 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
No. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt CA-2-19 on third reader?
So move.
Second.
Okay, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
No.
You said no?
Gotta be consistent.
Okay, I'm gonna do it over here. Let me see. Alderman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderman Payne?
Aye.
Alderman Pindall Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it. The City Attorney, please present the next item of the agenda. Oh, sorry, Alderman
Hi.
Rodriguez.
Thank
Sorry.
you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this is appropriate. I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to make the next item R2619, so we can get that one over with.
Second. That's the one on that we took out of the consent calendar.
It's on the consent.
It's okay? Okay, where is it?
It's gonna be
So
adopted
do you want
on
to motion
first
that,
reader.
please?
Yes.
You want to motion that for on first reader? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, it's on second reader, but
Second
there are
reader.
amendments, yeah.
Okay. And you have amendments for it? Yep. Okay. You have a second, please? Yep.
I second.
Second, okay. We'll put forward the amendments.
Thank you. So our 2619, as we all know, is to require rental licenses and inspections of HOCA properties, effective as the passing of this resolution. Since we first introduced it on first reader, have attended some meetings between our planning and zoning department and the HOCA leadership, specifically with our chief code enforcement officer, John Manassa, and the HOCA leadership team, where they've discussed an inspection schedule and the licensing upon completion of that inspection schedule being required. And so planning, John Manassa's team, together with HACA, have asked for a couple amendments to the resolution, which I support, which just clarify a little bit of that. But this essentially leaves it in the professionals' hands, so our inspection team are doing what they're tasked with doing, prioritizing, ensuring the health and safety of all residents of the city, including public housing, starting immediately. And so the important message is that this is supported and agreed by our planning and zoning department. So I think that makes sense, and hopefully my colleagues will support it. I would like to take them all as a group. I'll explain them each briefly. Amendment number 1 just adds.
Alderman Rodriguez, can we just get a copy
Do
of
we
the
have the
amendments?
amendments?
Yeah, they're published. They're uploaded.
They're uploaded? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
During caucus.
Make a motion, I'll second this.
Oh.
Have discussion.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt amendments 1 through 2 and 3.
I'll second that.
I think we're all in favour, yeah. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let's get it done.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.
As amended on second reading.
Yeah, Mark.
Can I get a motion to adopt?
Second reading.
As amended on second reader, please?
Mr. Mayor?
Second.
Yeah.
Well, I'll speak after the.
Okay, can I get a second? Alderwoman Finlayson? Yeah.
Thank you. In a brief aside, we need to make sure we have adequate staffing. This is something we definitely want to accomplish, but I know that staff has already full plate, and we don't need to be in the habit of putting more on already full plates. This is an important mission, and we need to make sure we have adequate staff to fulfill this mission. So, thank you.
Do we know whether we do or not?
Well, I think we can ask that question of Dr. Nash and her staff, or
Can maybe inspector planner?
Grab the mic.
I will find a mic. I found a mic. Sally Nash, Department of Planning and Zoning. It will be a resource issue. I don't think we can do these very expeditiously. We will incorporate them as we can in the upcoming months. It's going to take a while because some of these units have major issues, as we know, so it's not just going to be a one-time visit. We have also asked for an additional property maintenance inspector, which would greatly help us meet this resource issue.
may I ask, is that position in the mayor's proposed budget?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Nash, just for, I guess, everyone else too, that I know Alderman Rodriguez had a level of importance that he had attributed to when these where these inspections will happen. And I'm sure you all have discussed, and I see Mr. Manassas here today as well, discussed that level of importance.
That's right. I know there's been several conversations with the Chief of Code Enforcement and HACA leadership, and we also discussed it at the last housing meeting. We're willing to work with HACA, but we'd like to prioritize health and safety issues first.
Absolutely, which would be mold?
Mold, fire alarms.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Alderman Perrin?
From a time perspective, does it really make much difference if we hire new people or use the ones that we already have? Now, from a workload standpoint, I realize you'd rather have new people, but it seems like if we get somebody new in here, they're going to have to take time. First of all, it takes time to hire somebody. It takes more time for them to get up to speed on what's going on out there.
Right. It won't be an immediate relief, but in the next year, it will help us get more done quicker.
Okay. It seems like this is already our duty. I mean, we already have an obligation to do what's in here. I'm certainly not saying that I don't support this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask to be a sponsor, but it seems like this is only reiterating what we already have a responsibility to do. Is that correct?
Well, that depends on your interpretation of our cooperation agreement with HACA, and I will defer to the Office of Law for that.
And I would advise you not to really speak on that.
I'm sorry?
I would advise you to not speak on that.
You of all people.
Come on, you told off Mike.
Okay, theoretically, we have the obligation to do. All right, thank you.
Sorry, Alderman Tierney? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think just for clarity, the additional property inspector that is added in the budget was based on existing, inventory, et cetera, et cetera. So this added position is not dedicated to this resolution. I just want to put that in context. There already is a need to have an additional property inspector. That need exists, just to offer clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good point.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to be a sponsor. I'm not sure why I wasn't asked to begin with, since I supported then Mayor Panellides' move to do the inspections. I very much support what this calls upon us to do.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to thank my colleague from Ward 5 for really stepping up and leading on this effort.
Thank you.
So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thanks.
Okay, so we need to adopt it as amended on second reader. So we'll go first and a second. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? So, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderman Payne?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Ready? Madam City Clerk, please present the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is Charter Amendment CA 319, Office of Law, for the purpose of establishing an Office of Law.
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
I think we should get rid of the officer. We'll write our own legislation and do our own litigation.
Maybe just the people that work there.
Enough lawyers on council, that'd be easy, yeah.
I didn't say
Okay.
a word.
All right, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adopt C-3-19 on third reader?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderman Payne?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Ms. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda. I think we can squeeze one more in.
The next item on the agenda is Charter Amendment CA 419, Economic Development Program.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt CA-4-19 on second reader? Probably not a motion, right? No one really supports that, right? So no, we don't get a second.
We don't get a motion, a second.
419.
We just move on.
Okay, no second, that's all right. No, we know that. So that doesn't get a second. We'll leave that out there. Ms.
Wait,
City-
just a moment, please, Your Honor. Your Honor. Mr. Mayor, excuse me. Still can't get over that. It's been 4.5 years. Thank you.
You good? Good to go, everyone? Yeah. Ms. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is Charter Amendment CA 519, the Office of Emergency Management Department.
What are we doing?
Is there a motion to adopt C?
Did we do?
So moved.
Did we do it CA 419?
It didn't get a second?
You
so-
didn't get a motion or a second.
Okay.
It didn't get a
Yeah,
motion.
we knew that. Right.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
Second.
We're on C-5-19.
Emergency management, okay.
Okay, any discussion on that? Anybody want to speak to Kevin?
Is he here? Yep.
All right.
I'd like to be added as a sponsor.
Okay, great. They love this one, Teresa. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to adopt CA-5-19 on third reader?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Okay, Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Yes.
Alderman Tierney?
Yes.
Alderman Payne?
Aye.
Alderman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Rodriguez?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
I know.
All right. Ayes have it. Yay. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda. But actually, before that, so I'm going to do one more. Are you guys all right before lunch? Yeah.
Well,
Unless you guys want to work through lunch? No?
I will tell you there are excuse me, I have a mouthful of peanut butter crackers.
Yeah, right. Somebody's already.
You brought
There
your
are
lunch.
two amendments to 01219 sponsored by the mayor. One is a correcting amendment, and one gives it an effective date of July 1st. And those amendments, I understand, are not yet finished and ready. So maybe you want to eat and give the Office of Law time to wrap up those two amendments so that when you consider 01219 next, you have all of the amendments before you.
I think that's a good idea. Alderman Pindell Charles.
I have a question. Sorry to go back. CA 419. What happened with that?
You didn't get a motion or a second. Nobody said anything.
Okay.
So-
All right. Thank you.
These are ideas. It's ours to choose whether we like them or not. So I'm going to take the city manager's advice. I'm going to call a recess for lunch. Back at 1 o'clock.
Well, I have a question.
No,
I'm
Alderman Tierney.
confused. So, could you tell me, I'm not sure who I'm addressing this to, as far as the relationship of this ordinance, or how it relates to the predecessor of the charter amendment? In other words, we didn't vote for the CA 2-19, so I guess why are we talking about this ordinance? Or do you understand my question?
You would need to amend 01219 to be consistent with the actions you took on the charter amendments.
Yes.
And then when we get to 01719, you amend the budget to be consistent with those amendments. There is an alderman who has proposed amendments for that. With the alderman's permission, I'd be happy to hand those out. If Mr. Savage would let me do that. Are you?
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're attached.
They're not attached. We have replacement pages because of the changes you made yesterday afternoon that we prepared this morning. So the city, you are the only one who has those because you asked us not to upload them. I haven't distributed them to anyone without your permission. So we have replacement pages for your amendments that we can hand out for the budget 01719, and those amendments are consistent with what you just adopted on the
Okay.
charter amendments.
Okay.
Oh, for 017, yeah.
Yeah, I trust that
that's
my
good.
colleagues understand that.
Okay. Alderman Finlayson.
So, excuse me, I'm looking at the pink sheets for 017. Are these the ones that are being replaced, or?
So what I'd like you guys to do is pull all of your pink sheets out that start with amendment number 15.
Right.
Pull out 15
22.
Should be some nice light
Well, no,
lunchtime
'cause I
reading.
need to get my notes off of here.
Thanks.
I wrote all my notes on it,
Thanks.
so.
Okay. And I also have a replacement page for Alderman Savage's capital budget amendment, if he would like me to distribute that.
These all came in last night. Awesome.
Uh-huh. Would you like your,
Yes, thank you.
The last pink page? Oh, no.
Yeah, because some of the descriptions are different.
Yep.
It's the old one, yeah, thank you.
You guys are eating into your lunch break now. We're recessed
What's that one?
till 1 o'clock. 1:15? Why 1:15?
But of course, no, I didn't do it, so.
Okay.
My
We're going to break,
21.
we're going to break open these.
22.
Alderman Pion wants to come back at 1:15. 1:15, okay? Thank you.
Well, congratulations, sir. How are you?